Okay, got a web security exam right around the corner? Feeling that pressure? Hey, don't worry, I've got you. We're about to do a super fast explainer that covers the absolute must-knows of web attacks and cryptography. In just the next few minutes, we're going to get you totally prepped and ready to go.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into the threats. You know, how attackers can trick databases and hijack your browser. Then we're going to switch gears to the solutions. The good guys. We'll explore the art of secret codes, figure out if we need one key or two to lock our data, and finally, look at how messages can hide in plain sight. Let's do this.
So, what is this all about, really? Well, web application security is basically just about protecting websites and online services from all the bad stuff out there. Think of it as the digital bodyguard for every website you use.
Now, to get how the attacks work, you first have to know what we're protecting. Think of any website as having a few key parts. You've got the client, that's literally your web browser. Then there's the server, which is where the website actually lives, and the database, kind of like the site's brain, where all the information is stored. And of course, the connection tying them all together. Every single one of these can be a target.
All right, first up, let's talk about a classic and really dangerous attack, SQL Injection, or SQLi for short. This one goes right for the heart of the website, the database.
Here's the easiest way to picture this. Imagine you go to a library and hand the librarian a request slip for a book. But instead of just the book's title, you've secretly written a command on the slip that says, "And also give me all the books from the restricted section." That's SQL injection. The attacker slips a malicious command into a login box or search bar to trick the database into spilling all its secrets.
And the impact? Oh, it's huge. An attacker can steal everything. Usernames, passwords, they can bypass logins entirely, or even just delete the whole database. Now, for your exam, the key defense you need to know is something called prepared statements. It basically separates the command from the data, so the database doesn't get tricked. And this is so important because attackers have tools like SQLmap that just automatically hunt for these exact flaws.
Okay, on to our next big threat, cross-site scripting, or XSS. Now, if SQI was all about attacking the server's database, XSS is totally different. It's about attacking the user's browser. The target is you. Here's how it works. An attacker manages to sneak a piece of malicious code onto a website that you actually trust. Then, when you visit that page, that nasty script runs inside your browser. And what's the goal? Usually, it's something called session hijacking. They want to steal your session cookies. Think of a cookie like a digital wristband that keeps you logged into a site. If they steal it, they can pretend to be you. The best way to stop this is called output encoding, which basically tells the browser, hey, treat this as plain text, not code. Now, there are two main types you really need to know. First is reflected XSS. That's where you click a specially crafted evil link and the code immediately runs, but just for you. The second one, stored XSS, is way more dangerous. That's when the attacker actually posts the malicious script on the website itself, maybe in a comment section. Now, every single person who looks at that page gets infected.
All right, pay attention. This is a huge exam slide. I can almost guarantee you'll be asked about the difference between these two. So let's lock it in. SQI targets the server's database. XSS targets the client's browser. The goal of SQI, steal the database. The goal of XSS, steal the user's session. Just remember the analogies. SQI is tricking the librarian, and XSS is like posting a malicious notice on a public bulletin board.
Okay, enough with the doom and gloom of attacks. How do we actually fight back? We're shifting from the problems to the solutions. So welcome to the fascinating world of cryptography. This is our digital armor. You know, at its heart, cryptography is really just the science of secret writing. It's all about taking a normal message that anyone can read and scrambling it into a secret code that's complete gibberish to anyone who isn't supposed to see it. This is the magic that keeps our online banking and private messages, well, private. And the process is actually pretty simple. You start with your normal message, which we call plain text. You use a special key to encrypt it, and that turns it into unreadable junk called ciphertext. Now, you can send that ciphertext anywhere, and even if someone grabs it, it's useless to them. On the other end, the person who's supposed to get it uses a key to decrypt it, turning it right back into the original plain text.
So, you can see the real magic is all in the keys, but it turns out there are a couple of different ways to handle those keys. And that brings us to the two main types of encryption you absolutely have to know for your exam.
Listen up, because this is another guaranteed exam topic. Symmetric encryption uses just one single key to both lock and unlock the information. It's super fast, which makes it perfect for encrypting big chunks of data. Asymmetric encryption, on the other hand, uses a pair of keys, a public key that you can give to anyone and a private key that you keep secret. It's a bit slower, but it's fantastic for securely swapping keys or proving who you are online.
And hey, I've got a super simple trick so you never ever mix these two up. Symmetric starts with S, so it uses the same key. Asymmetric starts with A, so it uses another key, or a different pair of keys. See? Simple.
Right. So with symmetric encryption, both the sender and the receiver need to have the exact same secret key. One person uses it to lock the box, and the other person uses that identical key to unlock it. The biggest challenge here is pretty obvious. How do you get that single secret key to the other person without someone else grabbing it first?
Well, asymmetric encryption solves that key sharing problem beautifully. The best analogy is a public mailbox. You can shout your mailing address. That's your public key from the rooftops. Anyone in the world can use that address to drop a locked letter into your mailbox. But, and this is the important part, only you have the private key that can actually open that mailbox and read the letters.
Okay, to wrap things up, let's look at a few other really clever cryptographic techniques, because it's not always just about scrambling messages. Sometimes we need to verify data is legit or even hide a message completely. First, we have hashing. I want you to think of this as a digital fingerprint generator. You can feed it anything, a password, an entire file, and it spits out a unique code, a hash. But here is the most important part. It's a one-way street. You can never use the hash to figure out what the original input was. This is why it's perfect for storing passwords securely. Common types you'll hear about are older ones like MD5 and the modern standard SHA-256. Next up is a digital signature. This is basically the high-tech version of signing your name on a check. It uses asymmetric cryptography, that public-private key pair, to prove two incredibly important things. First, it proves the message really came from the person who claims to have sent it. That's authenticity. And second, it proves that the message hasn't been changed, not even by a single comma. That's integrity.
And for our last big comparison, let's talk about cryptography versus its sneaky cousin, steganography. This comes up on exams all the time. Cryptography's goal is to hide the meaning of a message by scrambling it. You can see the scrambled message, you just can't understand it. Steganography is different. Its goal is to hide the existence of the message altogether. You might hide a secret text file inside a totally normal-looking cat photo. And that's a wrap. We've covered attacks like SQLi and XSS, and defenses from encryption and hashing to digital signatures. You now have the core building blocks you need. So, here's a question for you. What's the first thing you're going to do to improve your own digital security? Think about it. Good luck on your exam. You're going to do great.